Right now on Morning News Now, a time of sorrow in Minneapolis and across America after that horrific mass shooting at a Catholic school. Heartbreaking new video shows students running for safety after a shooter opened fire during morning mass. Now we're learning more about the two children who never made it out.
A coward decided to take our 8-year-old son Fletcher away from us. Please remember Fletcher for the person he was and not the act that ended his life.
We'll take you to Minneapolis for the latest on the investigation, including what we're learning about journal entries allegedly written by the shooter. Plus, federal face-off, the White House naming a new acting director for the CDC just one day after the controversial firing of Susan Menares. And Fed Governor Lisa Cook now suing President Trump over what she calls his unprecedented and illegal attempt to fire her from the Financial Policy Making Board. We'll have the latest from Washington. Developing this morning, the nightmare before Labor Day, communications issues being blamed for a ground stop, delaying hundreds of flights at New Jersey's busy Newark airport. Plus, a series of storms could put a damper on your holiday weekend. We are tracking it all. And what makes a life well lived? Researchers say they're learning the answer from the dead, what they say they found by studying tens of millions of obituaries. Good morning. Good to have you with us on a Friday. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is on assignment. We begin this hour with the latest in that deadly shooting at a Minneapolis Catholic church. Surveillance footage and stories from witnesses are giving police a clearer picture of how the shooting unfolded during morning mass on Wednesday. That includes new video from a frightened parent who ran to the church after hearing gunshots. The footage shows children rushing out of the church to escape. Police say they've recovered 116 rifle shell casings at the scene. The 2-minute-long attack left 2 children dead and 18 other victims injured, rattling the southern Minneapolis community. The city honored the victims with prayer services across the Twin Cities yesterday, and some family members are now speaking out, including the father of 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel, who was killed in the shooting.
We will never be allowed to hold him, talk to him, play with him, and watch him grow into the wonderful young man he was on the path to becoming. Give your kids an extra hug and kiss today. We love you, Fletcher. You'll always be with us.
NBC News correspondent Jay Gray joins us now from Minneapolis with the latest. Jay, good morning. Those comments there from Jesse Merkel, absolutely heartbreaking. What more are we learning about these 2 young victims and also the many who were injured?
Yeah, and Joe, important to keep them at the front of all of this. You're right, just agonizing words from a father who is struggling with the loss of an 8-year-old son and sharing it with a community that is grieving for that loss as well. We heard about Fletcher. He loved sports, was very active, loved being at school, and was a leader in this school. But we've also heard in a written statement from the family of 10-year-old Harper Moisky, who is described as just a loving big sister, someone who was the light of her family and someone who is deeply missed as well. And it's important to put the faces and memories of these victims in the forefront of what is just a very difficult time here for those families and for this community. We do know of those that were injured. There was an additional student that was added to the list of those that were wounded during the attack yesterday. All of those students, as well as 3 parishioners, all in their 80s, expected to fully recover physically from their injuries. One of the students does remain in the hospital in critical condition, but again, that's after surgery and expected to make a full recovery. So that's good news and something that's helping to bolster this community that, again, is just struggling with what's happened here, Joe.
And we do want to keep the victims front and center, as you mentioned. They are our focus. You also mentioned yesterday that the students' training helped many of them survive this attack. So as more witnesses and survivors do begin to tell their stories, what are we learning about how they got through this terrifying experience? How many of them did survive?
Just amazing to hear how the training was taken into action when it was most needed. One of the students saying that we did train for this, that we trained for active shooting scenarios, but in the classroom, not in the church. Still, they relied on that training, diving under the pews. The older students laying on top and protecting the younger students in that church. It's a pre-K school through 8th grade, and so you hear time and time again about all of these older 7th and 8th grade students really taking charge and taking the initiative to protect the younger ones. And then, as we talked about earlier, as they fled the sanctuary, which is just behind us here, they helped to lead those younger children out. They helped to comfort those younger children, distract them in a way. And then we've heard repeatedly from the parishioners, the teachers, the staff that was inside the Mass as well, stories of leaning on their faith, praying, singing hymns during the time while they were waiting to be ushered out of the crime scene. Just an amazing story of how this young and very frightened group of students pulled together, joined together to get through just a horrific attack.
Yeah, and instantly on Wednesday, we heard the story of 10-year-old Weston, who talked about another student covering him. That student was then shot, but protecting Weston. We did say earlier police are reviewing this church surveillance footage, the cell phone video from witnesses to try and piece together what happened. What new details have emerged in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, we are learning a lot more. And first, one of the most striking things to me is the fact that police say this was an attack that had been planned not for weeks or even months, but for years, that the suspect as a teenager started to plan some sort of attack at the school she had attended, inside the church where she had worshiped. And we know that in the weeks just before the attack, came back and was inside that church and was really mapping out and then physically drawing from memory details about that church in preparation for the shooting. Fortunately, during the school mass, the doors were locked. And so the suspect could not get inside as originally planned. And that's when the plan changed and hundreds of shots were fired into the congregation through a stained glass window. We know also that in the writings, the manuscripts and journals, the postings, something investigators are studying very closely, that there was a lot of hate speech, Joe, hate of races, of religions, of processes, of the president. And there was also, investigators say, a real desire for notoriety, that this shooter had really studied and in their words, idolized some of the mass shooters and school shooters from the past in U.S. history. So they're beginning to detail some of the steps that got us here. Still aren't ready to say they have a clear motive in the attack.
All right, Jay Gray, appreciate your reporting. Thank you so much. Let's talk more about what police say they found in those extensive journal writings from the 23-year-old, which stated that the shooter wanted to see children suffer. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster has that part of the story.
Law enforcement searching for a motive to a heinous mass shooting and finding evidence of hate toward nearly all people, from a 23-year-old killer and a twisted desire for self-notoriety.
More than anything, the shooter wanted to kill children, defenseless children. In short, the shooter wanted to watch children suffer.
Police pouring through excerpts from the Minneapolis shooter's journal, some posted online, written largely using Russian Cyrillic alphabet as a way to code the entries.
How critical are those writings to your investigation?
Well, as of this time, we don't have a motive, so they are absolutely critical, trying to identify why this happened at this church.
The journals, reviewed and deciphered by NBC News, show an obsession with mass shootings, glorifying school shootings in particular. The shooter writing of being suicidal since childhood and repeatedly used anti-Semitic and racist rhetoric. Back in July, journal entries show the shooter identified Annunciation Catholic School as a target and mentioned doing reconnaissance trips past the school where authorities confirmed the shooter had once attended. Entries in the shooter's journal made multiple references to having a supportive family. NBC News' review of the writings showing her saying, "I am begging for help. I am screaming for help."
Are the shooter's parents and associates cooperating in your investigation?
Everyone that I am aware of has cooperated with the interviews that have been requested.
A former Annunciation employee telling NBC News the shooter was often sent to the principal's office for disciplinary discussions, adding that the shooter's mother, who had worked at Annunciation, talked about her child coming out as transgender and identifying as a girl. But law enforcement unable to declare a motive for a killer whose writings reveal a person filled with hatred.
And when investigators were asked about possible red flags ahead of the shooting, they said that they have no record of any encounter with police that would have prevented the shooter from purchasing a firearm. Back to you.
All right, Shaq, thank you. This morning, we're learning more about the ongoing upheaval at the nation's top public health agency. The White House announced it will tap Jim O'Neill to be the acting director of the CDC. He's currently a deputy to Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. This comes after the Trump administration announced earlier this week it was firing Director Susan Menarez. She refused to resign after just weeks on the job. That firing prompted other top CDC officials to resign in a show of solidarity. NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba joins us now with more on this. Monica, good morning. So the firing of Menarez seems to be creating a crisis within the CDC. Employees rallied outside its Atlanta headquarters yesterday, supporting her colleagues who resigned in protest. We're also learning new details about what led Menarez to being pushed out. What can you tell us about that and just the background of this new acting chief, Jim O'Neill?
Yeah, Joe, this is really sending shockwaves throughout the CDC, throughout the agency, and really to many public health experts. And at the core of all of this, at the heart of all of this, seems to be a disagreement about vaccine policy. And Menarez apparently was told that she was going to have to rubber stamp some potential new recommendations that would have limited who can receive COVID vaccines. And she reportedly stood up and said she didn't want to do that, and was told she also needed to dismiss some officials that she also didn't want to dismiss. So when she said all of that, she was asked to resign. She said she didn't want to. And we've seen this back and forth from the White House. And she has even raised questions about her status and doesn't believe that she was rightfully terminated. But the White House, for their part, has said that she has been fired because she doesn't align with what the president's own view of public health should be. Here's what the press secretary said on this yesterday.
Her lawyer's statement made it abundantly clear themselves that she was not aligned with the president's mission to make America healthy again. And the secretary asked her to resign. She said she would, and then she said she wouldn't. So the president fired her, which he has every right to do. I think if you're doing your job well, and if you are executing on the vision and the promises that the president made to the public who elected him back to this office, then you should have no fear about your job.
As for the new person who has been tapped to take over, this is somebody who has been a really key aide and ally to the current secretary of HHS, RFK Jr., somebody who has been carrying out his agenda as the deputy secretary, and he was confirmed by the Senate. So this is somebody who can act in this position for now, Joe.
Lots of HR-related drama coming out of the White House this week. You could say another controversy centers on the Federal Reserve Governor, Lisa Cook. She's now formally sued President Trump over what she calls his unprecedented and illegal efforts to remove her from the central bank. The president's trying to remove her over allegations of mortgage fraud. Cook has not been charged with any crime. She has said she's going to look into her financial history. What's the latest in this one?
Yeah, and we may get an answer on the status of this today, Joe, because this is going to be before a judge. There will be a hearing, and that judge could determine whether she is allowed to stay in this position on which she had years left on her term. But yes, the White House and the president have said that they are firing her, quote, for cause. They've made those allegations of mortgage fraud. And for her part, Lisa Cook and her attorneys say that this may have been a potential clerical error, so some kind of an issue with the documents that they are going to try to say does not amount to these charges. And they do continue to talk about the fact that there hasn't been any kind of an actual investigation or indictment of any crime here. And she denies that wrongdoing.
All right, Monica Alba, thank you so much. The rush is on across the country. Many of you are heading out to your Labor Day destination, marking the unofficial end of summer. The TSA says nearly 17.4 million passengers are expected to hit the skies over the holiday and into next week. It'll likely be the busiest busiest Labor Day period on record, and today will be the peak. The busy weekend got off to a bumpy start for passengers at Newark International Airport yesterday. A ground stop caused by a communications issue led to hundreds of flight delays, which cost passengers hours. Our NBC News correspondent Priya Sridhar joins us now from Atlanta, another very busy airport, with more on the weekend ahead. Priya, good morning. Let's start with those delays in Newark. What caused it? What kind of domino effect did it have on flights?
Hey, that's right, Joe. Well, Newark is always a very high volume airport, and you can expect that, of course, during this holiday travel weekend, it's going to be even busier. So, of course, this little turbulent spot just kicking off the holiday travel weekend really impacted lots and lots of passengers. What we do know from the FAA was this was due to what they're calling an equipment issue, and it caused some communication problems between pilots and air traffic controllers. That's what led to the ground stop. But even when the ground stop was lifted, it had a ripple effect on hundreds of flights, causing passengers an average of a 2.5-hour delay there. So we heard from a number of passengers who were just waiting at the airport, missing their connecting flights. And of course, some of them decided to just book rental cars and try to go to their final destinations. Other people having to pivot and change their plans for their entire weekend, Joe.
And as we mentioned, Priya, crowds expected to peak today. So with travelers hitting both the road and the skies, what is driving these expectations that this could be the busiest Labor Day on record?
Well, Joe, it's actually some pretty good news all around. When it comes to gas prices, AAA is saying that this year, right now, gas prices are at $3.21 per gallon compared to last year at $3.36 per gallon. And this is actually the lowest gas price that we've seen since 2021. They actually spiked a little bit recently due to U.S. oil refinery issues, but experts are saying that that's just temporary and that we can expect gas prices to go down even more. Now, in addition to that, domestic airfare is actually down about 6% compared to last year, and hotel rates and rental car rates are also down. The average domestic ticket price, however, is still $720 round trip, so that's not exactly inexpensive, but many people are choosing to travel to the top destinations this holiday travel weekend: Orlando, Seattle, New York City, and Boston. A lot of those are cruise destinations, Joe. So a lot of people are choosing to take cruises to cap off the end of the summer holiday travel season.
And I have a feeling some of those cruises might then go past Labor Day, so they'll have a very long weekend. Just with all these people hitting the roads, with all these people traveling, what is it people can do to make sure their travel does go as smoothly as possible?
So the number one tip, Joe, is to leave as early in the day as possible. Obviously, the longer you wait to hit the road, the more likely you are to run into traffic congestion. Today, specifically, the busiest hours on the road are going to be between 12 and 8 p.m. Also, fill up your gas tank the night before. You can expect a lot of people to head to the gas station when they hit the road. So to avoid that, try to do it the night before. Also, be prepared. Have snacks and water in your car, and also an emergency kit just in case anything should happen. Joe?
All right. Priya in Atlanta, thank you so much. It does look like some stormy weather could slow down your travel holiday plans, depending on where you are or where you're headed. Meteorologist Angie Lastman is tracking it all for us. Angie, good morning.
Hi, Joe. Good morning to you. The good news is we do have some bright spots in the forecast, but yes, you're exactly right. Some stormy weather already starting up across parts of the South. We've got flood watches and some flash flood warnings in effect for Texas, or parts of Texas, I should say, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. And that's kind of the bullseye of this morning's heavy rain. So no surprise that we're dealing with some flooding concerns there. But unfortunately, this kind of stationary front just hangs around over the next couple of days. So we remain unsettled. And again, when we have potential, when we already have really saturated grounds and the potential for more of that rain, not going to be hard for us to pick up some additional flooding concerns as the weekend goes on. That lasts even into Sunday. Monday, we'll see some minor improvements in some spots. But if you're hitting the roads today, you just heard Priya talk all about some of those tips. Here's some areas that you're going to want to watch watch for. I-95 across parts of New England. We've got some showers and storms there. That rain I mentioned along the Gulf Coast, that could slow you down on places like I-20 and I-75. And then out west across parts of the mountains and the plains, I-70, I-90, you could run into some rain as well. The airports I'd watch, Boston specifically and New Orleans. Those are two locations that you'll likely see some delays, weather-related delays, I should say. Otherwise, Minneapolis, Denver, Salt Lake City, Orlando, not a bad idea to keep an eye on those as well. I mentioned there's some good news in the forecast, and there is. Look at the Northeast. I mean, great temperatures, maybe on the cooler side of things for folks that want to get in that last bit of beach weather, but still going to be pretty nice. Mid-70s for Boston, full sunshine across the board for New York City into Monday. We've got a bit of cloud cover, maybe a couple of showers that we'll have to dodge, but they're not going to be long-lasting. Notice Minneapolis, you're dry Saturday and Sunday, but we've got some thunderstorms in the picture by Monday, and we'll see more of those storms kind of firing up over the plains. This is the not-so-great news that we have across the South. It's the rain for you in Houston across the board, but your temperatures will be into the 90s. So if you're looking for warm and humid and rainy, that's where you got to be. Atlanta.
Who doesn't want that on Labor Day?
Yeah.
Rain and hot.
The Goldilocks weather forecast, I call it.
Love it. All right, Angie, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, a real problem caused by artificial intelligence. We're going to take a look at why critics say the technology is a threat to the environment. Up first after the break, disturbing new details about that deadly Israeli attack on one of Gaza's busiest hospitals. What NBC News has uncovered next. Stay with us. We're back with some new information on Monday's deadly Israeli strikes on Nasser Hospital in Gaza, which killed journalists and rescue workers. An NBC News analysis of newly obtained video found that at least 4 munitions were fired at the hospital. The strikes were initially thought to be a double tap attack. NBC News international correspondent Molly Hunter joins us now from Jerusalem with more on this. Molly, good morning.
Joe, good morning to you. And in the last hour, we actually have some breaking news I just want to share with you. The IDF has announced that they have started to ramp up their push into the north of Gaza. As a reminder to our audience, this was expected. This is Prime Minister Netanyahu's plan to take over all of Gaza. But as you mentioned, our new reporting says that Nasser Hospital was hit at least 4 times by the Israeli military on Monday morning. Take a look.
In a new statement, Reuters news agency now says the IDF knew their team was operating from Nasser Hospital on Monday morning when a pair of Israeli strikes hit the Reuters live location, killing cameraman Hossam al-Masri and 4 other journalists, 22 people in all. In a statement to NBC News, Reuters said Israel was fully aware that Reuters and multiple other news organizations were operating from Nasser Hospital. The agency added it had offered daily feeds from that location in recent weeks, but had stopped sharing more specific details after so many journalists were killed in IDF strikes. The IDF has not responded to NBC's questions. The military claims it was taking out a camera positioned by Hamas. But there was only one camera on the roof of Nasser Hospital, the Reuters camera, according to multiple eyewitnesses. Journalist Ibrahim Kanan tells NBC News Reuters and AP have a specific location, the highest location, and the Army has the GPS coordinates. Video of the aftermath of the first strike shows the hospital was initially hit twice. The staircase where journalists were working and another staircase here next to the ICU. Then the second strike minutes later shows one projectile and then a second. Weapons experts say they are Israeli-fired missiles headed directly toward the first responders and journalists racing up the stairs. We showed the aftermath video inside the ICU to Dr. Osama Asfour, who confirmed the location, saying the first 2 hits were almost simultaneous, causing so much damage, halting surgery there for the day. The Israeli military struck the hospital at least 4 times in total in what is the latest incident raising international alarm over how Israel is conducting its campaign in Gaza.
Now, Joe, as I mentioned in the piece, we took all of this reporting to the Israeli military. They did not give NBC News a comment. And back to this morning's operations, we are seeing new video of very big explosions east of Gaza City just in the last half an hour. And the Prime Minister of Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu, has announced that the IDF has recovered the bodies of 2 hostages. Joe?
All right, Molly, thank you. More international headlines now, starting with new developments on the war in Ukraine. NBC's Matt Bodner joins us with that and more world news in 60 seconds. Matt, good morning.
Joe, good morning. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that Moscow's use of ballistic missiles against civilians in the capital of Kyiv this week shows that they are not serious about ending the war. The latest death toll on those strikes has risen to 23 people. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that he is, quote, not happy, but also not surprised. However, the White House continues to characterize the Ukrainians as antagonists in the war, according to recent Ukrainian attacks on critical Russian oil facilities. Moving along now to South Korea, the wife of South Korea's jailed former President Yoon has been indicted, along with his former prime minister, as part of investigations into the attempts to implement martial law last year, which threw the country into political crisis. And we'll wrap up this hour in Japan. An AI video of the famous Mount Fuji erupting has been released to the public as part of an effort to raise awareness over potential natural disasters. Mount Fuji has not erupted since 2017. The Tokyo city government wants its 37 million residents to be ready for anything at any moment without warning. Back to you.
I'll certainly get your attention. All right, Matt, thank you so much. The Florida Immigration Detention Center, dubbed Alligator Alcatraz, opened in early July, even got a visit from the president, but now it appears to be abruptly closing. A top state official says the facility could soon be empty just days after a federal judge ordered its shutdown. Reporter Hatzel Vela from NBC South Florida has the details.
For the first time, official confirmation detainees are being moved out of the so-called Alligator Alcatraz. A spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security tells NBC News, quote, DHS is complying with this order and moving detainees to other facilities. On Wednesday, NBC6 got a hold of an email from Kevin Guthrie, director of Florida's Division of Emergency Management, the agency that's been in charge of the controversial facility. In it, Guthrie writes, quote, I have forwarded your email. However, we are probably going to be down to 0 individuals within a few days, end quote. Federal Judge Kathleen Williams rejected a request to pause her recent ruling. The federal ruling last week ordered operations at the facility be shut down within 60 days and prohibited new detainees from being sent there.
From what we can tell on the ground, it looks like they're complying. But we are going to remain vigilant. We cannot take their word for it.
New video from Chopper 6 does show movement at the detention center.
So we know it's going to close and we know it's going to go away. But we're trying to make that happen as fast as possible because we're worried about the impacts to the environment.
50% full right now.
Tom Homan, the president's border czar from the White House, told us the facility is half full, adding the place is not a long-term facility.
I do think ICE needs more brick and mortar facilities. We've got the money now to build infrastructure like we're building the wall and other things down there. We need permanent facilities.
Congressman Carlos Jimenez talked about the possible looming closure.
Is there still a national security or compelling national security reason why it must remain open? I'm not sure. But there weren't the same number of people there that it was designed to, and it's a pretty big expense.
So what should we expect? NBC6 political analyst Alex Pinellas talked to us about the immediate fate of the facility.
Eventually, you will see within the next month or so the dismantling, the total dismantling of this particular detention center.
All right, thanks to Hatzel Vela for that report. White House border czar Tom Homan says he disagrees with the judge's order, calling it a bad decision. He says the camp is a clean, well-maintained facility. Coming up, medical breakthrough that is changing lives.
I think for us, the future is hopeful, and that's something that not a lot of people with ALS can say.
Up next, the new treatment giving hope to some patients battling a debilitating disease. And researchers unlocking the secret to a life well lived, all by turning to the dead. What they discovered after reading millions of obituaries. Morning News Now will be right back. We're back now with a promising breakthrough for some in the fight against a deadly disease. ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, progressively kills nerve cells, leaving patients unable to walk or talk and, in the end, even breathe on their own. Well, there is still no cure. A new treatment is now bringing hope for a rare few. NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson has that story.
Rakesh Park is a walking miracle 4 years after his ALS diagnosis.
I'm still breathing on my own. I'm still eating on my own. I still work. I'm still here. So it's working.
The Orlando, Florida emergency room doctor, husband and father of 3, is still here despite phenomenal odds. According to the ALS Association, most ALS patients die within 5 years of diagnosis, and Rakesh's form of ALS is extremely rare.
Do you have a unique form of ALS?
I do, yeah. Unfortunately, there's probably, what we think is a handful of families worldwide.
Neurologist Bjorn Oscarsson is Rakesh's doctor at Mayo Clinic, Jacksonville.
It's probably something like 15 people in the U.S. who live with ALS from this mutation at this time.
Only 15 other people?
Yes.
What the medical community calls nano-rare conditions, not enough to get a commercial drug company's attention. So Rakesh's wife, Tejal, who he calls his gravitational force of happiness, searched for another way and discovered the NLORM Foundation.
Just searching the internet and discovered that they actually help people who have rare genetic diseases by creating sort of a custom medication for those people. So we applied and they said, yeah.
September of 21 was when we got the acceptance on my birthday.
That's quite a birthday present.
Yes, it was.
How fast were you deteriorating?
It was what I would consider slow at first and then gradually picked up.
It would take 3 years to develop at an estimated cost of $1.2 million, which NLORM covers completely. The therapy is called an ASO.
These ASOs are gene-stopping drugs. They don't fix the gene, but they stop the bad protein being made.
So in theory, it should stop the ALS from progressing.
Yes. This drug that we're using here, we think lasts about 3 months. So we have to go in and give it 4 times a year.
Dr. Oscarsson gave Rakesh the first dose a year and 3 months ago.
Did you worry at all that you were going to be a human guinea pig in this?
Never.
Never?
Never. Any small amount of hope is not only hope for me, it's hope for technology, and it's hope for my family.
And what have you seen?
So his disease has slowed down and maybe even improved a little bit. We have measures of breathing function strength, which have clearly plateaued. And again, he is not losing strength like he used to.
Strong enough that this summer, Rakesh once again proposed to Tejal in Athens, Greece, where he first proposed 24 years ago, but this time with their 3 children as witnesses.
What does your future look like now with this medicine?
I think for us, the future is hopeful. And that's something that not a lot of people with ALS can say.
Thanks to Ann Thompson for that report. Well, the extra time off, on a long weekend like this one can give you some time to think about what matters and consider what kind of impact you want to make. Research shows that more than half of Americans hope to leave some kind of positive mark on the world, but 80% care more about the impression they leave on their loved ones. The memory we leave behind is the focus of a new study published in the National Library of Medicine this week. Researchers analyzed 38 million obituaries in the U.S. over the last 3 decades to find out what people value most in life. One of the lead authors of that study joins me now, Dr. David Markowitz. He's an associate professor in the Department of Communications at Michigan State University, and we work with his sister, Allie. Dr. Markowitz, good to have you with us. I'm excited to chat about this with you. This is the largest study of how Americans remember their loved ones. This fascinates me because I write a lot of the obituaries here at NBC News. So walk us through what you discovered and just the work that went into it.
Of course. And first, thanks for having me, Joe. And so we collected about 38 million obituaries, which equated to about 7 billion words over about a 30-year time span. And we counted the words that reflected personal values, things that people really think that are really meaningful to a life well lived. And what we found is that the most prevalent values were those related to tradition, so a focus on religion, and also caring for others, caring for the close connections that we make all throughout the lifespan. And what's remarkable is that these obituaries, they hold some really personal, deep reflections, and they are impacted by a range of different things, such as cultural moments that we experience, the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the COVID-19 pandemic, and they are impacted by the deceased themselves, the gender of the deceased, and the age of the deceased.
So I see the word benevolence on there, and my understanding is that it dropped sharply after the pandemic and then didn't recover. Do we have an idea of why that is?
That's exactly right. So this was probably one of our most surprising findings. So during a time when communities were really making such extraordinary sacrifices, we were wearing masks, we were social distancing, we were staying at home, obituaries became less likely to emphasize caring for close others. And what we think this reflects is how in a time of crisis, a time of personal distress, our pro-social behavior, our caring for other people, it became harder to publicly recognize, even when it was really widespread. So it's this difference between what we're thinking internally and what we're expressing externally.
Can you explain at all why people's memories of others are so different across gender and age, like you mentioned?
Yeah, exactly right. So what we really think is that there's a lot of stereotyping that goes on for people based on their demographics. So people who were reflecting on the deceased and those who are men, they tend to focus more on their achievements, which is often a stereotype where people are really focusing on the competence of men compared to women. And in a converse way, people are often thinking about the warmth and sort of the caring for others that women will often display, and those are reflected more in the obituaries for women compared to men. And these are sort of these stereotypes that are really pervasive in society. And it's not only a personal reflection of these obituaries, but as we can see here, just in this example, they're also societal reflection. They reflect what's going on in the social fabric of our everyday lives.
So what is it that drew you to this topic, and what do you hope we can learn from this?
Sure. I care a lot about words. So I'm a psychology of language scholar. So I want to know what people are thinking, feeling, and experiencing in the world, and trying to understand systematically what is going on in the human condition. And there's nothing really greater than trying to understand what does it mean to live well and to live a really good life. And we can learn a lot about what it means to live a good life from those who have passed.
Words matter. Dr. David Markowitz, fascinating stuff. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, coming up, a real estate slowdown. New data signaling a shift in the housing market, what you should know if you're looking to buy. Welcome back. The explosive growth of artificial intelligence has raised many ethical and philosophical questions. But what about something as basic as how much energy does it consume? As AI grows, it's gaining a reputation for being a bit of an energy guzzler, especially for things like ChatGPT. People ask AI billions of questions a day, but experts say there's something you're doing right now, probably every day, that does consume more energy. More on that in a sec, but here to break this down is Michael Koren. He's a climate advice columnist for the Washington Post. Michael, good to have you with us. So first, just walk me through which AI services do consume the most energy and how that's fueling the demand.
Sure. So, we think about the conversations we have is consuming a lot of energy. And in the past, they did. Since 2008, the efficiency of these algorithms have improved by 99%. And so what we're seeing today is that video and images are really consuming far more than text. And video by far is consuming more energy.
So I know you teamed up with a decarbonization analytics company for your recent reporting to kind of look at the impact AI is having on greenhouse gas emissions that are produced in our digital lives. What'd you find?
Well, generally speaking, if you're using a chatbot to ask questions or do some research, it's going to be a minimal amount of emissions. So each query you make might consume about 0.23 watt hours of electricity. That's enough to run a LED light bulb for a few minutes. And so that's not really going to impact your total emissions. When you think about that in the scheme of your life, it's really far less than 1%, even if you ask those questions every day.
So watching TV, is that basically more? That's kind of what I was getting at earlier.
Yeah, actually, so when you think about what does consume most of your emissions from digital services, it's going to be TV. That's your biggest one. Digital storage. We have so much on these data servers that we're accessing. And also, just using video on the internet and for work.
It is early in our AI journey here. So at the rate that AI is growing, just what kind of impact will its energy needs have on people and the climate looking forward? Should we be concerned?
So I think when you think about the emissions that you produce generally, I mean, individually, it's not that big a concern for the average user. What we're looking at is that AI is going to be integrated into everything. So it'll be in your car, in your phone. Companies will be using this billions of times a day to talk to different agents. And at that scale, we're now talking about a significant portion of the electricity produced in the United States, up to 8% from 3% today. And how do we manage that is really about the power grid. So it's not just efficiency. These have become far more efficient over time and will continue to do so. But the more efficient these services become, the more energy we'll actually use. And so the power grid itself needs to bring on new clean energy at a rate that we just haven't been doing in the past few years.
Beyond the power grid, just real quick, anything else that can be done to lower the emissions that are generated by AI use?
Sure. So I think we have some easy fixes today. Just managing the system, the data centers better, and the data centers are now consuming far more than they have in the past. Can shave off 20% of the energy consumption for a lot of these queries. But going forward, it's going to be new energy sources and cleaner sources.
All right. Important conversation. Michael Korn, thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Happy to.
Time now for some financial headlines. July's housing market cooled down with more buyers walking away from their contracts. CNBC's Savannah Henao has that and some other money news. Savannah, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. Yes, so some mixed news out of the housing market. New data shows pending home sales, which those are contracts that have been signed but not completed, slipped in July from the previous month. Now, pending sales, they did rise from a year ago. Higher mortgage rates and a slowing job market have kept prospective home buyers on the sidelines. And economists at Redfin say buyers are waiting to see excuse me. Wow. They're waiting to see whether the Federal Reserve cuts interest rates in September before they jump in. Meanwhile, shares of the firm are surging as the buy now, pay later service swings to a profit in its latest quarter. The company saying people are flocking to its 0% APR loans and other products such as offers, and also tend to attract a bigger mix of new customers. Now, analysts say a firm's results, they ease worries about potential lost revenue to rival Klarna, which teamed up with Walmart earlier this year. And you will get to root for Team Jacob or Team Edward again this fall. The Twilight movies are heading back to theaters to mark the 20th anniversary of author Stephenie Meyer's original book. So the 5 films, Twilight, New Moon, Eclipse, and Breaking Dawn, parts 1 and 2, well, they will be shown during the Halloween season from October 29th to November 2nd. And the original release, the Twilight Saga, that has grossed more than $3 billion worldwide. And it made stars of Kristen Stewart, Robert Pattinson, and Taylor Lautner, Joe.
All right. Did you sneeze during that?
I did. I couldn't hold it.
Good job hiding it. I sneezed 3 times and very loudly, so the show would have been knocked off the air if I had done it. So well done. Coming up, the truth is out there, or is it? An out-of-this-world discovery sparking a debate between scientists. When we come back, why some think it could be a sign of alien life. So don't blast off. This is Morning News Now. Let's end this hour with an interstellar object that's causing a cosmic debate among astronomers. One scientist claims it could be a sign of alien life. Some others strongly disagree. NBC News Stay Tuned Now anchor Gadi Schwartz explains.
There's a mysterious interstellar object hurtling towards our solar system, exciting scientists across the globe. While many think it's just a comet, some theorizing a possible alien origin due to a few curious characteristics.
The peculiar thing about it is that it's moving along a trajectory that is very special.
Harvard physicist Avi Loeb has been tracking the object named 3I Atlas.
When it arrives closest to the sun, the Earth would be on the opposite side, and we won't be able to observe it. But that's exactly the time when it could do a maneuver to slow down and visit us. And one wonders whether this trajectory was designed by some extraterrestrial intelligence.
He's also interested in why the object doesn't show the usual signs of a comet, which normally have long, glowing dust trails behind them. But Loeb says Atlas appears to have a slight glow in front of it. So is it a piece of alien technology? Well, it's not exactly a close encounter of the third kind. The outer space anomaly is still drawing scientists into its orbit. NASA scientists first spotting 3I Atlas in July, just a tiny speck of light sailing through a sea of stars, a mind-bogglingly rare visitor from outside our solar system.
We're really excited about this object. So far, we've discovered 3 interstellar objects, so it's a rare opportunity.
Days later, the European Southern Observatory took these high-definition shots showing it traveling a whopping 130,000 miles per hour. It could be 3.5 miles wide, but luckily won't come close to Earth, and not everyone's on board with Loeb's theories. Oxford astronomer Chris Lintott telling Live Science in an email, any suggestion that it's artificial is nonsense on stilts and is an insult to the exciting work going on to understand this object. But Professor Loeb maintains he is keeping an open mind.
As a scientist, I'm guided by evidence, not by opinions of my colleagues, because our imagination is limited by our experience on Earth.
And when it comes to the vastness of space, there is plenty of room for big ideas. Gadi Schwartz, NBC News.
Star Wars. There you go. All right, that does it for this hour of Morning News Now. Stick with us. The news continues right now. Good Friday morning. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is on assignment. Right now on Morning News Now, leaning on faith. The Minneapolis community devastated by a horrific mass shooting at a school church, searching for peace in prayer and mourning the deaths of 2 young kids. But we're hearing from the families of those 2 children killed. As new images show the horror inside Annunciation Catholic Church, kids ducking for cover and running for their lives, all as investigators reveal more details about the shooter.
The shooter left behind hundreds of pages of writings. In short, the shooter appeared to hate all of us. The shooter's heart was full of hate.
We will have the very latest on the investigation. Plus, showdown at the CDC. Public health officials protesting outside the agency's headquarters after the Trump administration replaces its director just weeks after she started the job. But we're learning about the vaccine policy at the center of that rift. Also this morning, shaky start. The TSA expecting a record number of air passengers on this Labor Day weekend. But at Newark Airport, more air traffic control problems delaying hundreds of flights. We'll tell you what to expect if you're about to set off. Plus, holiday deals. With all the economic uncertainty around President Trump's tariffs, now might be the perfect time to take advantage of those Labor Day discounts. We'll have a list of all the products you're going to want to buy now and what you should probably wait on later this hour. Let's begin this hour with that deadly shooting at a Minneapolis Catholic school. We're learning more about the 2 children who were killed in Wednesday's attack, 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel and 10-year-old Harper Moisky. Their devastated families are now speaking out about the young lives lost in the tragedy. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa is outside the church with the latest. Maggie, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. Yeah, Harper's and Fletcher's parents asking everyone to remember their kids for the lives they lived, not how they died. Meanwhile, police telling us they have learned 1 more person was injured than they originally thought, bringing that total to 18 as their investigation this morning deepens.
Remembered as a boy who loved fishing and a girl known for her laughter, this morning 8-year-old Fletcher Merkel and 10-year-old Harper Moisky now identified as the 2 children killed in Wednesday's mass shooting in Minneapolis. Outside Annunciation Catholic Church, Fletcher's father calling his son's killer a coward.
We will never be allowed to hold him, talk to him, play with him. Please remember Fletcher for the person he was and not the act that ended his life. Give your kids an extra hug and kiss today.
Harper's parents describing her as bright, joyful, and deeply loved, writing words cannot capture the depth of our pain. Among the wounded, 10-year-old Astoria Safe. Her father says she has shrapnel in her skull.
Her being here today is a miracle.
The church's stained glass windows shattered.
Who's the shooter?
Meanwhile, we're getting the first images from inside the church, students running moments after the attack. Authorities say the 23-year-old shooter who died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound was a former student at Annunciation who wrote about having recently broken up with a romantic partner and making reconnaissance trips past the school. Her writings and videos filled with hate.
The shooter was obsessed with the idea of killing children.
Meanwhile, we're hearing about acts of heroism in the face of danger. 9-year-old June Helene says her teacher and an older student assigned to be her buddy in church helped her take cover.
My buddy kind of grabbed my hand and then we kind of just ran out with my teacher.
What's it like to hear your 9-year-old tell that story?
It's very surreal. It doesn't feel like reality.
June's dad praising older students and staff who jumped in to help.
There's so much goodness here.
And back to that investigation, authorities have said the shooter had no criminal record, but a police report obtained by NBC News says that in 2018, officers responded to the home where the shooter was living with her mother. The reasons listed were mental health and the welfare check of a juvenile. This comes as authorities this week have said they haven't been able to get in touch with the shooter's mother, who, by the way, they say used to work at this church. NBC News has also reached out, and so far, no response. Joe.
Right. Maggie, thank you so much. The Trump administration has named a new acting director of the nation's top public health agency after days of turmoil at the CDC. The White House announced the firing this week of CDC Director Susan Menarez. Other agency officials then stepped down in a show of support to her. Menarez had been on the job for only a few weeks before she was let go after refusing to resign from her role. NBC News senior White House correspondent Gabe Gutierrez joins us with the latest developments. Gabe, good morning.
Hey there, Joe. Good morning. This is a seismic showdown between the White House and public health and the public health establishment. The officials who resigned are pointing to misinformation about vaccines that they say played a role in the largest number of measles cases in 30 years, as well as abrupt changes to COVID vaccine recommendations. The Trump administration says it reserves the right to clean house.
This morning, mounting turmoil at the CDC after top officials at the health agency clashed with the Trump administration over vaccine policy.
So let's get the politics out of public health.
According to an administration official, the White House tapping a new acting CDC director, Jim O'Neill, a deputy of longtime vaccine skeptic and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
There's a lot of trouble at CDC, and it's going to require getting rid of some people over the long term in order for us to change the institutional culture.
The new pick comes after the previous director, Dr. Susan Menarez, was fired just weeks after being confirmed by Congress and sworn in by Kennedy.
Susan is an expert in public health.
Former acting CDC director Dr. Richard Besser recently spoke with Menarez.
What she said to me is that she had a couple lines in the sand. She said she would never do anything illegal and she would never do anything that ran counter to the science. And she said the secretary asked her to do both.
4 other leaders resigning in protest. Current and former employees rallying outside the agency's headquarters in Atlanta, cheering those officials, including Deborah Howery.
America's public health is significantly in danger. And Dimitri, Dan, and I chose to leave together to send that bat signal, essentially. Our departure, we hope, will be a wake-up call for the Senate and others.
2 Republican lawmakers appearing to heed that call, expressing concern and calling for congressional oversight, though it's not clear how many GOP lawmakers will join Democrats in opposing the changes at the CDC. It's the latest chapter in President Trump's push to exert more control over the federal government.
What specifically did she do wrong?
Look, what I will say about this individual is that her lawyer's statement made it abundantly clear themselves that she was not aligned with the president's mission to make America healthy again.
Meanwhile, at another agency, Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook is now suing to keep her job after the president fired her this week over allegations she lied on a mortgage application to get better loan terms, which she denies. Joe.
All right, Gabe, thank you. As this Labor Day weekend kicks off, airports, roadways, and railways will be jam-packed across the country. And since both gas prices and airfares are down from a year ago, well, travel experts say this year's end of summer celebration could be one for the record books. NBC News correspondent Priya Sridhar is in Atlanta this morning with the latest. Priya, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Yeah, the TSA is predicting 17.4 million people could be passing through their checkpoints over this extended holiday travel weekend from yesterday to Wednesday of next week. And they actually say that today, Friday, is going to be the busiest day during that time frame with 3 million passengers. So if you do have a flight booked today, be prepared for extra crowds here at the airport.
This morning on the nation's roadways, railways, and airports, the Labor Day rush is in full swing, with more than 17 million people expected to take to the skies for the holiday weekend. At Newark's Liberty International Airport, it was a turbulent start with more air traffic control trouble. Hundreds of delays due to a ground stop caused by communication issues between controllers and pilots.
We've just been having really bad frequency issues and frequency failures.
Travelers forced to wait an average of more than 2.5 hours, capping off the busiest travel season in more than a decade.
You can expect busy airports and packed roads. A lot of people have time off. They're going to want to take advantage of it.
Travel costs are down this year, according to AAA, with round-trip ticket prices, hotel rooms, and rental cars all cheaper than last year. Topping the list of destinations, places like Orlando, New York, and Seattle. Experts say that translates to extra traffic congestion in those cities.
Grill some burgers, do our last-minute hurrah.
With some savvy travelers trying to get away early to maximize time on the sand and minimize time in traffic.
I think this is a good time to start coming down because, it's just going to get worse, I think.
And if you are planning on hitting the road to your holiday weekend destination, we do have a few tips that will hopefully make your journey a little bit more smooth. One is leave as early as possible. Obviously, the longer you wait, the more likely you are to hit traffic congestion. Also, be prepared. Have snacks, water, and an emergency kit in your car. Also, try to hit the gas station the night before you leave as opposed to once you're already on the road, because we can expect long lines over at the gas station. The good news, though, when it comes to gas prices are, even though there was a little bit of a temporary spike due to U.S. oil refinery issues, the gas prices right now are actually the lowest they've been since 2021. Joe?
That's some good news there. Priya, thank you so much. Let's see if meteorologist Angie Lastman has even more good news for the Labor Day weekend forecast. Angie, good morning.
You're putting me on the spot, Joe. Luckily, I do have some good news, but we're going to start with the bad news because we got to get that out of the way first so we can end on a positive note. Here's what we're dealing with this morning. And notice we've got flash flood warnings that are in effect for parts, just really a sliver of northeastern Texas, and then a good chunk of the area south of Shreveport for Louisiana. That's because we've had ongoing heavy rain working through that same region through the day today. And notice a much bigger area is under a flood watch. And that's what we're going to see last really through, honestly, the next couple of days. Here's a look at today. You can see this front. It doesn't go anywhere. It's essentially just parked across that same region as we get through your Friday, your Saturday, and then eventually your Sunday. More of this heavy rain. So again, there will be periods of heavy rain and those flood warnings and watches likely here on the backside of that rain. So heads up for folks that are across the south over the next couple of days and celebrating their holiday. You're going to be in and out of the unsettled weather. That's one spot that I'd watch on the roads: I-20, I-10, I-75. Also, extreme northern portions of New England. Some showers and thunderstorms. I-95 could be a little bumpy. And then we've got a couple of airports that I'd specifically watch if you're flying in and out of those. Boston is one of them. New Orleans is another. And really Salt Lake City, Denver, Minneapolis, Orlando, all locations that you're going to want to watch today for the potential for some rain to delay some of those flights. If you're looking for the good news, here it is. Look at New York City, upper 70s across the board from say should for late August, but really great conditions. Not a whole lot of storm activity that's going to interrupt those outdoor plans. That goes for folks in the Midwest as well. Notice there's a bit of rain for Minneapolis and other parts of the plains as we get to Monday, but overall pretty good temperatures and pretty good sky conditions. The South is where we see that stalled front kind of just hang around and be a pesky front that leaves us with some rain. Temperature-wise, we're going to be sitting into the low 80s on Sunday and Monday in Atlanta, and we will actually see a bit of sunshine for folks there. Here's where we really turn up the heat. We've got a lot of sunshine basically from the Rockies to the West Coast, but notice 108 degrees on Sunday in Phoenix, 105 on Monday, a much more milder forecast for our friends in San Francisco in the low 70s.
The sun is laboring in Phoenix.
Yeah.
So.
No rest for the weary, I guess.
All right, Angie, thanks so much.
You got it.
Israel's push to capture Gaza City is escalating this morning. The IDF said it was canceling the tactical humanitarian pauses that were in place there, now describing the area as a dangerous combat zone. The attack is expected to again displace hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who've been fleeing the city over the past few weeks. The assault comes amid international outcry over the recently declared man-made famine in Gaza City, following months of Israeli restrictions on food aid entering the enclave. The UN Secretary General is among many world leaders condemning Israel's latest military operation.
Israel's initial steps to militarily take over Gaza City signals a new and dangerous phase. Expanded military operations in Gaza City will have devastating consequences. Hundreds of thousands of civilians, already exhausted and traumatized, would be forced to flee yet again. Starvation of the civilian population must never be used as a method of warfare. Civilians must be protected. Humanitarian access must be unimpeded. No more excuses, no more obstacles, no more lies.
NBC News International correspondent Molly Hunter joins us now from Jerusalem. So, Molly, first of all, what are we learning about Israel's push to try and take over Gaza City this morning? And where are the Palestinians expected to flee to this time?
Well, Joe, on your second question, they don't know. Our team has already spoken with displaced Palestinians who are in Gaza City, and they've been given no instruction of certain safe corridors. They don't know where to go. And to set the scene in Gaza City this morning, we are seeing huge explosions to the east of Gaza City. This is the main city in the north. An estimated 1 million people live in the city right now, or still in the city. But in the last couple of weeks, Joe, we have been reporting on the military buildup. We've been reporting on the intensified airstrikes ahead of this expected push into Gaza City. And so what we have been told is that Palestinians who have already been displaced so many times, Joe, have been pushing into the city for some semblance of safety, or at least because they don't know where else to go. If they are forced to move south, there is just no room. There's no place even. I saw people tweeting out and talking to our team actually this morning. There's no place even to put down a tent in the south. It is so crowded. So we will certainly be doing more reporting on this to figure out from a civilian perspective where they're even meant to go. And you did just hear this, and you said this in your intro, Joe, that this is a part of Gaza that the International Hunger Monitoring Group last week already said was under a man-made famine, a man-made crisis. The situation, and you just heard from the UN Secretary General, is extremely dire.
And Molly, you've also been doing a lot of reporting this week on the fallout from those Israeli strikes on Gaza's Nasser hospital. Killed journalists, it killed rescue workers. Initially, it was thought that this was a, quote, double tap attack, but an NBC News analysis says those more munitions were actually fired. Tell us what you discovered.
That's right, more munitions. And the people that you just mentioned, civilians, journalists, first responders, all people protected under international law. Hospitals also protected under international law, Joe. But looking at new video in the aftermath of the first strike, we now understand from eyewitnesses and from this video that 2 different staircases were hit in that first strike, and minutes later, we have now analyzed video to show that the second strike, which was on the staircase filled with journalists and first responders responding to that first strike, 2 different missiles fired within milliseconds were used in that second strike. Joe, we have gone back to the IDF to ask them about all of that, and they have not even given us a comment.
And Molly, we are pretty quickly approaching the 2-year anniversary of the October 7th attacks, and now the Israeli government says it's recovered the bodies of 2 hostages. What more are we learning here?
We have his name, Joe. His name was Ilan Weiss. I'm sorry, we have one of the names of the two hostages that were recovered this morning. Ilan Weiss was murdered and was taken hostage from his home in Kibbutz Be'eri, according to Israeli authorities. He was 55 years old at the time of his death. We will see a lot of remembrances and condolences today. The second body is undergoing identification, and the Israeli authorities and Prime Minister Netanyahu's office, Joe, said they estimate that there are about 50, they think 48 hostages still inside Gaza, and they believe at least 20 are still alive. This only fuels the frustration from the families of hostages and from the Israeli public that we have been seeing all week. Major protests demanding that Prime Minister Netanyahu agree to a deal that brings everyone home, all the hostages home, and ends the war, Joe.
All right, Molly Hunter, thank you so much. Today marks 20 years since Hurricane Katrina struck the Gulf Coast. The Category 3 storm breached the levees and left New Orleans underwater, claimed more than 1,300 lives. 2 decades later, the city is reflecting on the devastation and celebrating the resilience of survivors. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson joins us now from New Orleans with more. Priscilla, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. Commemorations are set to get underway in just a few hours, and they will start here at this mural that was painted over the levee where it was breached in the lower 9th Ward, a reminder of all that was lost and the rebirth that continues today. A solemn day in the Big Easy,
which, as we well know, was 20 years ago.
New Orleans marking the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, when more than 1,300 people died. Today, honoring victims and survivors with a traditional second line, the music and the people marching on. 20 years to the day after the Category 3 storm overtook the levees, 80% of the city was flooded. Unforgettable images of water up to rooftops. A days-long rescue operation, residents seeking refuge at the convention center and the Superdome.
It was horrible.
More than 1 million people across the Gulf Coast were displaced. 2 decades later, tourism has rebounded. The city even hosted the Super Bowl earlier this year, and some neighborhoods have emerged stronger than before. But outside of the tourist areas, scars from the flood lay bare. This is what the hardest hit lower 9th Ward looks like today. Army General Russell Honore commanded the relief effort here all those years ago. Doorstep still there, but no house.
Yeah, symbolic. It gives a marker that there's somebody in this property going to come back.
That's what you see when you see that. Somebody's coming back.
Somebody's coming back.
Criticism over the federal response led to a strengthening of the Federal Emergency Management Agency, though recent budget cuts prompted nearly 200 FEMA employees to release an open letter warning of the potential for another Katrina-like disaster. This month, a mural unveiled, honoring the community where the levee in the lower 9th broke. What do you see when you look around here?
I see opportunity. Come in, get you a lot, build a house, love your neighbors, and come back home.
Do you think this community will ever come back?
I think the opportunity is there, yeah.
And we should note the Department of Homeland Security says that FEMA is fully prepared for hurricane season. But today in New Orleans, it is all about remembrance, and they are going to do it in true New Orleans style. So the brass band is going to take to the streets with the people marching right behind them in that second line to do it how they do in the Big Easy. Joe?
All right, Priscilla, thank you so much. And while New Orleans was the epicenter when it came to the tragic loss of lives and housing, cities all along the Gulf Coast were hit hard. Katrina decimated entire neighborhoods in Mississippi. Homes flooded, hundreds of lives lost there. Now MSNBC contributor Tremaine Lee has returned to the area 20 years after he covered the story as a young reporter. It's for a new documentary. He spoke to one man who remembered the hours he spent waiting for word about his mother and stepfather. He was stuck in Boston while they were back home in Gulfport, surrounded by rising water.
The water there had gotten up to their roof, and but they had evacuated. And I said, oh, Lord. I felt that my mother and father were in this house dead floating with snakes, raccoons, creosote, everything you can imagine from the water around here. But somebody called me. I think she was in front of Pittman's house on a cell phone and said, "I saw your mother."
That was just one of the many stories that Tremaine heard as he traced the arc of recovery through the voices of those who've spent decades now rebuilding. His new documentary, it is called Hope in High Water, A People's Recovery, 20 years after Hurricane Katrina, and you can stream it right now on Peacock. Welcome back. Karen Reed has given her first interview since she was found not guilty of murdering her police officer boyfriend. Here's NBC News correspondent Emily Ikeda with more on what she had to say.
Hey there, Karen Reed revealing her newfound freedom is not what she expected, talking for the first time about her experience through not one, but two sensational trials that gripped the nation. While she says she sacrificed a lot, Reed is looking forward to what's ahead after what she called a 4-year-long nightmare.
It's been 2.5 months since a Massachusetts jury found Karen Reed not guilty of killing her police officer boyfriend.
It's not quite as I expected.
Now she's speaking out on the Howie Carr show in her first formal interview since the trial.
There's moments I have every day that have these little epiphanies of, wow, this is the first time I've done fill in the blank in the last 4 years that I wasn't living with this nightmare.
The 45-year-old, who is now living with her parents, says getting to this point included a lot of sacrifice. She lost 2 jobs, sold her house to pay her legal fees, and still hasn't gotten back her SUV, which was impounded during the investigation and trials.
You realize when you have to sacrifice to make something happen, to fight for your life, you pull every lever you can.
Reed was tried twice for John O'Keefe's death, with prosecutors alleging she backed into him with her SUV during a drunken argument.
She was drunk, she hit him, and she left him to die.
But Reed's defense maintained that science showed O'Keefe was never hit by a car. Her first murder trial ending in a hung jury, while in the second, she was convicted of drunk driving and sentenced to 1 year of probation.
This case was corrupted from the start.
Her attorney, Alan Jackson, who has suggested Reed was framed for O'Keefe's death, says they're now exploring filing a civil suit.
Nothing's off the table, and no one's off the table.
Reed is also facing a civil suit of her own, with O'Keefe's family filing a wrongful death case against her last year.
Never in my entire life have I been more invested in a court case.
The lengthy legal saga that became a social media sensation will now reportedly be spotlighted in a new limited series for Prime Video. Deadline reporting Hunger Games actress Elizabeth Banks will play Reed, something Reed says she didn't authorize and is not involved in.
There's just a lot more to tell.
Karen Reed is involved in a different scripted project chronicling her experience over the past 4 years. By the way, Michael Proctor, the lead investigator in Reed's initial case, fired after his derogatory texts about her came to light, is in court this week fighting to get his job back. Back to you.
All right, Emily, thank you. New this morning, Thailand's prime minister has just been removed from office. NBC's Matt Bodner joins us with that and more world news in 60 seconds. Matt, good morning.
Joe, good morning. Thailand's Supreme Court has dismissed the nation's prime minister. This decision comes after a ruling that she violated constitutional ethics in a phone call with the Cambodian Senate's president. The prime minister was suspended from her duties on July 1st after a phone call leaked between the two discussing their border dispute, which erupted into armed conflict earlier this year. She's accused of failing to protect her nation's interests. Moving along now to Mexico, a session of the Mexican Senate descended into chaos on Wednesday. A fight broke out between 2 senior members after one of them became enraged that he was not given a chance to speak. The scrum expanded to include several people, including the leader of the opposition party, and someone appears to have taken a swing at the Senate president. We'll wrap up this hour with the Venice Film Festival. George Clooney's new film, Jay Kelly, received a 10-minute ovation following its world premiere at the festival. Clooney was joined by co-stars Adam Sandler and Laura Dern. The film is directed by Noah Baumbach, who says he wrote the film specifically for Clooney. Sounds like a good one. Back to you.
Yeah, 10-minute standing ovation. That says a lot right there, Matt. Thank you so much. We're back now with a closer look at what's making news in the world of politics this Friday morning, starting with a former baseball player now running for office in Texas. NBC News Chief Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us now. Ryan, good morning.
Hey, Joe, good morning. And it's a baseball player that made his name where you are in New York City. Former baseball star and World Series champion Mark Teixeira is stepping up to the plate to mount a run for Congress. The former New York Yankee first baseman announced a run to replace Texas Congressman Chip Roy, who is leaving the House to run for Texas Attorney General. Teixeira, he is a Republican. He promised to work to support the Trump agenda. And as the heat continues to turn up on Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the Trump Health and Human Services Secretary will appear before the Senate Finance Committee meeting on Thursday of next week. Now, this hearing is just a general oversight meeting, but he is expected to be pressed on his changes to vaccine administration in the United States and the controversial removal of the head of the Centers for Disease Control. And here in Washington, D.C., Mayor Muriel Bowser facing some pushback from members of her own party after she suggested that President Trump's military takeover of law enforcement in the city was actually helping to reduce crime. Members of the city council warned that Trump's move was creeping authoritarianism and should not be supported in any way. Bowser admitted that the surge has helped reduce incidents of crime, but expressed concern over the heavy immigration enforcement efforts and said that she hoped the federal takeover would end when the 30-day window of authority expires. And that's a look at where we start the day in politics. Joe, back to you.
All right, Ryan, thank you so much. Here is a shocking statistic. The number of homeless Americans over the age of 65 is expected to more than double over the next 5 years. And for many of them, it will be their first time being homeless. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk went to Phoenix, where homeless seniors are fighting rising rents as well as triple-digit heat. Steph, good morning.
Hey, good morning. You know, one of the really startling things here, Joe, is the fact that the two people who I met had worked their whole lives. One of them had a family, a 401k, 2 kids, and when one thing went wrong, he was homeless. And we spent 3 days with them on the streets where they gave me a tour of what life was like when they lost their houses.
Was this the first place you spent a night after being evicted?
Yes.
How did you sleep? I see chairs here. What did you do?
Probably something like this.
Not very comfortable.
No, that's why it was like an hour or two at a time.
In 2021, at 69 years old, Vernon Wedge became homeless for the first time. After losing his eyesight, then his job, then his savings, Vernon was evicted from the Scottsdale, Arizona apartment he shared with his adult son, Grant, and their dog, Roscoe.
This is the apartment building that you were
That we got booted out of, yeah. You know, I was on the waiting list waiting for the shelters to call back, and nobody ever called back.
Vernon scrambled to find a new place to live, but he, Roscoe, and Grant, who was struggling with substance abuse, ended up sleeping in the street. What Vernon thought would just be one night turned into a year. Last year, more than 42,000 Americans over the age of 65 were homeless, and researchers estimate there could be more than 100,000 homeless seniors by 2030. Like Vernon, many of those seniors had never been homeless before.
Steph, just a reminder, how many people are just maybe a paycheck away from homelessness, and then when you're older and you maybe don't even have that paycheck. Talk about why it's necessary to have senior-only shelters.
Because they have specific needs, and you get older, there are health concerns, right? It's also very difficult for many seniors to navigate the options that are available to them, and they really need people who can help them and handhold them during that process. But ultimately, Joe, what's needed is more affordable housing. And there really isn't enough affordable housing. And Social Security checks do not cut it. It is not enough to survive in really any American city. And there are people who are trying to do it. And that's how they end up on the streets. Our whole documentary, if you have a chance to take a look, is on our website, NBCnews.com.
Check it out right now. Fascinating reporting, Steph. Thanks so much. All right, coming up, get ready for some Labor Day discounts. Our very own Brian Chung is here to tell you which sales are worth spending your money on this weekend and what you should hold off on, right now at least. We'll be right back. We're back with a look ahead to the weekend holiday, and that means big sales for shoppers, with questions rising about how tariffs could affect prices later this year. Now might be the best time to snag some deals. NBC News business and data correspondent Brian Chung is here to break down what to expect. All right, so when we talk about prices, we've got inflation on our minds, we've got new tariffs on our minds. So how do this year's Labor Day sales stack up with the past?
Yeah, a lot of people might be eyeing those deals, maybe for a mattress, maybe for a small appliance, maybe for clothes. But when it comes to the tariffs, there's that looming question for consumers over whether or not now is truly the best time to buy. I want to point out that Wells Fargo has been watching prices and inventory for a number of categories, and they say they really haven't changed that much in terms of stock or prices yet. But the question is, with the tariffs having taken effect earlier this month, and now with this new change to de minimis shipping, which I believe we're going to talk about in a little bit, there is this question of whether or not those could get more expensive in the months to come, especially with that country-specific tariff now being applied to packages under $800, which is going to be a lot of things that we buy. So with those costs going up, if you see a good deal this holiday weekend, Joe, might not be the worst time to get in.
So remind us, this de minimis exemption, you've been talking about it all week. It ends today. What is it? What could be the impact of this as far as what consumers need to know?
Yeah, this is a very in-the-weeds tariff policy that a lot of people don't think about. But basically, up until today, anything that was coming into this country that was under $800 in value from abroad was not applied a tariff rate. But that change is now going to take effect today, which means that those tariffs will now apply to those packages under $800 per an executive order from the president, which means that if you direct ship something from China, or, well, it's actually been the case that China's already had this exemption nixed since April. But if you're getting something from Japan or the European Union, it will be applied a tariff rate. I want to point out, though, letters, documents, and gifts that are under $100 that are sent from abroad, those will remain tax-free. But you can imagine if you're ordering something from Etsy or eBay under that $800 threshold, well, now that's going to be applied this tariff.
So a lot of folks will notice that. Are there any sales or discounts you're keeping an eye on this Labor Day weekend?
Yeah, well, look, when it comes to the types of categories that you should watch for, especially with the threat of those looming tariffs in the future taking bite, well, you could look at things like, for example, mattresses, as well as appliances, furniture, summer clearance items as well. This is usually the time that a lot of these retailers try to get rid of their, inflatable pools or swimwear that maybe you don't need for this season, but you can get in for next season and have that in your closet. Things to wait on, though, according to Trey Bodge, a shopping expert, electronics, apparel, and toys. And the reason for that is that even if you might see some deals now, the best discounting tends to be a little bit closer to Black Friday and the holidays. So you don't need to necessarily panic to buy those types of things, even if you see a decent deal. You can maybe afford to wait it out.
It does feel weird sometimes to buy like the shorts and the summer clothes now, knowing you can't wear them, but you'll be happy next year when you're like, oh, look at this.
If you remember, which I usually don't. I'm like, wait, these were from 4 years ago. I forgot I bought that.
All right, Brian, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yep.
We've got some more financial headlines this morning, starting with a new partnership that might make it easier to binge some of your favorite shows. CNBC's Silvana Henao joins us with that and some other money news. Silvana, good morning.
Hey, Joe. Good morning. Happy Friday. Yes, so Comcast, NBC Universal, and Amazon are expanding their distribution deal to bring the ad-free version of Peacock to Prime Video. Now, it's the first time the streaming service is being offered as part of Amazon's package of digital channels. It also gives NBC Universal a broader platform to promote Peacock Premium Plus, which costs $16.99 a month. Peacock has 41 million subscribers, smaller than its peers, and it has yet to turn a profit. Meanwhile, YouTube and Fox striking a deal to keep Fox channels available on YouTube TV. The companies had reached a short-term extension on Wednesday to prevent any disruptions for subscribers. And the dispute centered around how much Fox was asking YouTube to pay to carry its channels, including Fox Sports, News, and Business. Now, the deal comes just ahead of a huge weekend for college football, including top-ranked Texas taking on number 3 Ohio State on Fox. And Threads is testing a new feature, making it easier to share long-form text on the social network. So Meta telling TechCrunch it will let users attach a block of text to a post instead of having to create a thread of several posts when you're looking to share more in-depth thoughts. Now, the move could help Threads hold on to creators and writers who want bigger distribution for articles they might otherwise post on their blogs or on Substack, Joe.
All right. Thank you so much, Silvana. Appreciate it. Finally, this Friday, it is time for your weekly can't miss list to look at all of the movies, shows, and music you need to see and listen to this weekend. For more, let's bring in David Correa. He is an entertainment correspondent and co-host of the Husbanter podcast alongside his husband. Love that. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks
your
for
first time
having
here
me.
on the can't miss list. So we're going to start with a movie that's getting a lot of attention this week. Caught Stealing. You got Austin Butler. This is one of Bad Bunny's in this one too.
And look,
right?
I'll watch anything with Bad Bunny in
Yeah,
it.
no kidding. And so it's, I guess to put it simply, cat sitting goes wrong. It's how we've headlined this. Goes real wrong, right?
It goes real wrong. It is the perfect movie to tune into over this weekend because it's Austin Butler at his finest. It's Bad Bunny. It's Regina King. Austin gets himself into a world of trouble. And like, it's one of those movies that you just watch because you want to watch this guy who's basically someone that gets himself into trouble all the time, find his way out of trouble. He's not bad to look at. There's a lot of fun here. It's a wild, wild ride. Critics love it.
Oh, that's great. It's getting good reviews. And he's not playing Elvis in this one.
Right.
So just be prepared
No Elvis
for that.
tone either.
All right, let's shift gears to a little prayer. This is a touching movie. It's about a father who's trying to save his son's marriage. What can you tell us about this?
This stars David Strathairn, who folks may remember from Good Night, Good Luck, Academy Award nominee. He's such a fantastic actor. He's trying to save his son's marriage. He has a wonderful relationship with his daughter-in-law, Tammy, who's played by Jane Levy. And really, it talks about the depth of family love and how fragile it can be. It's a real tearjerker. This one I saw already. It is tough to get through, but David's performance is top-notch. Everyone is saying it's so quiet, it's so real, it's so authentic that we could see him get another Oscar nomination. His last one was in 2005.
Many years ago, so it's been some time, 20 years later. Speaking of troubled marriages, we've got The Roses. I guess it's based on or inspired by the 1989 movie, The War of the Roses. I do remember that one a little bit. How's this update one?
This one's great. The original with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. This one is with Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman, who we all love. So Benedict plays Theo, and Olivia plays Ivy. His career crashes, hers soars, and they end up going to war. And it is wild. It's directed by Jay Roach, who does the Meet the Parent films, which that gives you a ton of, I mean, it gives me anxiety. I don't know about everybody else.
Exactly.
So be prepared because this one is equally at that level, but funny. Their performances are incredible and great British humor, too.
I didn't know Jay did that. I just met Jay over the summer at the Tribeca Film Festival because we did a Meet the Parents reunion, and he is a funny guy. So I'm looking forward to seeing this one. All right, if you're going to stay in this weekend, there's some streaming shows to choose from. Let's start with the reality show K-Popped on Apple Plus. I mean, K-pop in general is having a moment on streaming right now. So what should we know about this one?
This one I'm really excited for a ton of reasons. I love music. I love pop culture. I love pop music. I love K-pop. And this one is Apple TV's jump into the K-pop universe. So K-pop stars team up with Western stars like Megan Thee Stallion, Kesha, Patti LaBelle. They re-envision their songs like Lady Marmalade and Savage, turn them into the K-pop style, and then they compete against each other. And in the very first episode, Patty goes against Megan Thee Stallion, which I never thought I would hear myself say anywhere.
But it's happening here.
It's happening. An icon versus a new icon. So we'll see how it goes. I've worked with Patty. She's incredible. I have a good friend that works with Megan closely. She's also incredible. I know who wins. You'll have to tune in to find out.
No spoilers here.
No spoilers, but it is really, really great. It's so much fun.
It's a good idea and feels like right for this moment here right now. Okay, we know that people love a good documentary right now. This is about a catfishing case involving high schoolers, made national headlines. It's on Netflix. It's called Unknown Number, the High School Catfish. What should we know?
This one, if you love true crime, this one's for you. It does exactly what a great true crime documentary does. It keeps you on your toes the entire time. So basically, a young girl and her boyfriend are being catfished and they're being stalked online. It talks about cyberbullying and really the age that we're in. And these poor teenagers, I couldn't imagine having to go through that as a teenager. But what really keeps you going on this one is the twists and the turns. When you watch this ending, I'm telling you, tune in because the ending alone, the shift in this documentary, you will be 100% shocked.
We just have 20 seconds left here, but we teased Sabrina Carpenter. I didn't know this was her 7th album, but it is Man's Best Friend. What do we think?
It's incredible. It's satirical. It's funny. She just dropped the new video with Coleman Domingo, which is a nod to Rocky Horror Show. It's everything you want from Shakespeare's pop princess. I mean, her lyrics are exactly that. They're poetry. They're funny. They're witty. I love her.
The more I see from her, the more and more I like her. I just think she's just like a doll. All right. Thank you so much, David. Good to have you with us. Thanks for joining us. That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now, but stick with us. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.